Well, the odds are out, and this is one of the most curious ones that I've seen. I've seen this before. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the year. Las Vegas is giving bettors the opportunity to bet on Georgia and Bama as a cluster to win the national championship versus the field. And we're coming out of spring football. We uh, we now know a lot more, so to speak, about the younger players that will be at Georgia and Alabama. And of course, the national championship game is still fresh on everyone's mind. The Dogs and Tide are being listed as minus 130 to win the national championship. So you can bet, whatever it is, and get that line, and then the rest of the field is plus 110. So what does that mean? That gives Georgia, either Georgia or Bama, according to Las Vegas, somewhere around a 57% chance of winning the national championship. Everybody else, excuse me, combined is at 43. So if you feel like it's a very good value play, you think Ohio State's going to win the national championship, you think Clemson is going to win the national championship, you think Georgia Tech's going to win the national championship, you go ahead and you take the field, and you're getting pretty good odds. The problem you got are the two teams that are sitting right in front of your face. That's these two, right? Georgia and Alabama have been the premier programs in college football over the last 2 years for sure, and possibly two of the top four certainly two of the top four over the last 5 years. I mean, the only schools, now this is going off the top of my head, the only schools that have played for multiple national championships since 2017 are Georgia, Alabama, and Clemson. I believe those are the only three. And Georgia and Alabama have not played in the Cheez-It Bowl. So these are two of these are not like the other. Um, there's also a lot of optimism about the future at Georgia and Alabama. Georgia maybe more, but there's a lot of optimism that those two. There's a lot of curiosity about the future at Clemson. And where do they go now? They've lost Brent Venables. They've lost every offensive coordinator that got them to the playoff. And Dabo doesn't seem willing to embrace the future of college football, flawed as it may be. So when you look at this proposition, it's essentially a prop bet. It gives you the ability to take a look at how strong Las Vegas feels Bama and Georgia are versus the rest of the field. I'm a little curious. I mean, I don't think they would put Ohio State in there. I mean, you can't put everybody that's a power, right? And Ohio State is going to be I mean, I don't think Ohio State's going to open the season as the one, but I don't think they're going to open the season as the three either. The narrative that Georgia has lost too much in air quotes is going to be prevalent. Um, so I think you're going to see Alabama at the one, Ohio State at two, and Georgia as the three, because there will be the notion that Georgia has lost too much. Ohio State had some guys leave. Alabama did too now, but they returned their two key players, their best offensive player in Bryce Young, and their best defensive player, who most people think, or a lot of people think, is the best overall player in college football. We'll see about that. But those two guys return. For the Dogs, obviously an exodus on the defensive side of the ball, a lot of firepower returning offensively. I mean, you lose your two running backs, you do lose George Pickens, but everybody else is back. I mean, Stetson Bennett obviously was the key to the end of the season. Offensively, for sure. And then the offensive line essentially is intact with a couple of late round draft picks as an exception. They are not back, Schaefer and Jamari. But this Georgia offense, there's a lot of expectation that they will be good. Um, Question becomes, will they be better than the offense at Alabama and the offense at Ohio State? And maybe, I think they'll be better than the offense at Clemson. I mean, that's the real rub right now at Clemson is they cannot get it together on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense should be pretty good. Um, but I don't know if Clemson will survive the regular season to get to the playoff. I mean, when you start talking about an over under at 10, that's not ideal for getting to the end of the thing. Now, I have not seen a lot of over-unders for the rest of non ACC SEC. Uh, but I'm typing it in right now just to see where Ohio State is at. It is kind of interesting to see just how high Georgia is. I mean, that is a lot. I mean, 11 and a half, you know, um, that you'd be that high playing in this league and playing in the SEC generally speaking. I mean, and you're opening with Oregon, right? I mean, but I just I want to find Ohio State's over under because I would imagine it would be pretty high as well. Um, whenever we're talking on these, I don't do a very good job of looking and talking at the same time. That's always a very complicated thing to do. But when you look at yeah, here we go. So that's 2021. Like last year, Clemson, coming into the 21 season, the over-unders were as follows. 11 and a half for Alabama. They did not hit that. 11 and a half for Clemson. They did not hit that. Ohio State 11, which I believe they did not hit. Oklahoma at 11, which they did not hit. And Georgia at 10 and a half, which they were over. Cincinnati was over at 10. Coastal was at 10. They did not hit that, if I'm not mistaken. But it's one of these things where if you want value, my suspicion would be you're having the value of everybody else other than Georgia and Bama in college football. You take the field. The problem you got is, the way Georgia bludgeoned Michigan a season ago makes you wonder how far behind the Big Ten is. And people would say, well, Ohio State's going to be the team this year. We thought Ohio State was going to be the team last year. They do probably have the best NFL prospect on their team in CJ Stroud. But I don't know if that means they have the best team. They gave up a lot of points during the season. Besides Ohio State, I'm not sure who the most obvious, national champion is. It's not to me. It's not Clemson. There's that offense concerns you way too much. So is there someone out west that you're not aware of? I mean, could Oregon come to? I was about to say Athens. Could Oregon come to Georgia and lose by a touchdown? But it comes really late, and they kind of grind it out the whole time. Then Dan Lanning and company get 12 games to get right, the 11 regular seasons and the Pac-12 championship game. Is that a scenario? Georgia loses a game in the regular season or they lose the SEC championship. Alabama loses a game in the regular season and wins the SEC championship. You got those two teams and Oregon in there and, you know, Ohio State. I mean, and then you get Oregon and Ohio State kind of figuring things out in the semifinals, and maybe they both pull upsets and win. I don't know, but my suspicion would be that Georgia and Bama would both be favored over Ohio State. Probably Alabama would be. I would imagine that Georgia would be as well, but maybe not by much. I think if you start out talking about who would be favored in that game, I don't know. A season ago, Georgia would have been favored, even going into the playoff the week of the Michigan game. But these are tricky little bets. They're fun to talk about before the regular season. But it is something I'm curious to watch.